Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Ambush Bug Nothing Special, #1 from 1992. This is going to wrap up our look at Ambush Bug comics by Keith Giffen. There's a slight lineup change. Almost the whole lineup's exactly the same, except Bob Oxner is no longer inking, and Al Gordon, longtime inker Al Gordon, is inking. You can kind of see already the difference. Al Gordon definitely, he adds his own little special flair. It definitely looks different than the Oxner inks did. So we start off with this thing, The Book of Jobs by Irwin Schwab, A.B., Ambush Bug. And then we see all the creative team giving testimonials about how they had dead-end jobs until they read the Book of Jobs. And now they're all successful comic creators. Now we see Ambush Bug. He's just come out. He's just had his resume written. And now he's trying to get a job. We see him in the swamps, near Swamp Thing. And there's this running gag of how the job interviewer, in this case being Swamp Thing, is going to the bathroom. And then is like, oh, sorry I had to do that. Now let's look at your resume. When he finds out that Ambush Bug lists as one of his previous job that he was a lumberjack, that kind of sours the deal. And Swamp Thing doesn't hire him to be his nanny. There's a little reference to, I guess, Arkham Asylum had just come out. He says, if I'd only been created by Grant Morrison and Dave McKeon, this chintzy special would probably be a $30 hardcover. Now we see Under the Ocean Waves, Flush. Aquaman gets out of the bathroom. And this time all the dialogue is just glub, 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 glub. But all to the same result. He didn't get the job. Ambush Bug says, I shouldn't have listed one of my hobbies as deep-sea fishing. Now we see it, we're in outer space. This guy, Valor, I guess was Mon-El. He kind of disappeared. Nobody ever really liked him. He's trying to get a job as a sidekick. Mon-El thinks it's a team-up. So, of course, he has to lead off with the obligatory misunderstanding and attack him. Just like in all those issues of Marvel 2-in-1 when I was a kid. They always fought first. And now we have this parody ad. Whiny Pathetic Love, #9. My wife deserves a whole man. She deserves a husband with a spleen. Boy meets girl, boy gets girl, boy loses spleen. Same old story. Now he's interviewing for the Doom Patrol, which was being written by Grant Morrison at the time. You know, it was all zany and surreal. Look how Ambush Bug shows up. He's, I'm dressed as a gay caballero, and my head is wedged up the rear end of a big teddy bear with a head in the shape of a cathedral with wings. That actually looks like it could be a Doom Patrol character. Of course, he doesn't get the job. Now he interviews with Morpheus, and he's dressed up as the Golden Age Sandman. He's basically telling him, like, listen, man, you got no sense of humor. You need a goofy sidekick like me. And he says, I reject the notion that I lack humor. And he puts all these T-Tarzan feathers, Ambush Bug, to prove he has a sense of humor. There's one thing I forgot to point out, I think. Yeah, guys, you know that I was talking about that Keith Giffen just doing the weird shadowing on the face? This is a particularly egregious one. Look at that. It's just like, it looks like a black piece of cloth hovering over his face. It doesn't look like, it's not proper shadowing at all. It doesn't work. He interviews with Lobo. He dresses up as one of his dolphins. Lobo's not amused. Lobo basically somehow chops him up and puts him in these little cans of tuna, Lobo brand tuna. And Ambush Bug's inside each one going, help, let me out. So now we see we're outside of a bar called El Creators, and it's Keith Giffen and Robert Lauren Fleming, and they're getting drunk, but they're plotting the issue. They're like, we should always do this. This is great, drinking and plotting. Let's get another round. And then they just mention how they're drinking a Japanese beer, and of course we hear bong, which gives Keith Giffen another opportunity to show us Mitsubishi, Ambushbug's Japanese counterpart, once again doing his parodies of manga. Pretty fun looking stuff. Now we see Ambushbug. I guess he's at the doctor. Somehow actually was Rex the surgeon dog. He used to be Rex the wonder dog, but now he decided to specialize. He somehow put Ambushbug back together from all those cans of tuna. You know, it's an Ambushbug comic. Who cares? And then Ambushbug is bemoaning the fact that cartoon characters can't even vote. He says, from now on, I swear by all I hold dear, I will vote. Will forget to register. This is what it says. So now apparently it looks like he has a job at DC Comics. He's just like a copy boy. He's like the lowest rung on the ladder. And here's the title, If Schwartz Be My Destiny. So then all of a sudden the phone rings, and then, yes, it's your very own call from Al. And you're stuck 3 hours later. So this issue makes a lot of fun of Al Gordon. I don't know if it's true, but apparently he's the kind of guy who calls you and won't let you off the phone for hours. If it is true, it's kind of mean-spirited. So I guess at this point, Julius Schwartz is kind of semi-retired. He's basically the goodwill ambassador of DC Comics, almost how Stan Lee was for a long time at Marvel. He didn't really do anything. He was just kind of like the face of the company. So Ambushbug realizes that's the only, if he wants to move up, that's the only thing he's able to do. So he goes to the personnel guy at DC and says, hey, I want his job. And the guy's like, hey, he's got a contract for life. He's like, yeah, but he's old. He's not going to be around forever, right? Can I have the job? And the guy says, yeah, when he dies, the job's yours. So now we see 12 years later, Ambushbug, for some reason, is in the DC warehouse. He's hoping to find some loose copies of Bomba the Jungle Boy. There's also a reference to the Heckler comic that Keith Giffen did the same year, where he's like, there's like 10,000 moldering copies of the Heckler in here. So he finds this time cube, which is basically a time machine. And he says, I'll go 100 years in the future. Julie can't be alive then. He's an old man now. And unfortunately, Julie's still kicking. I love this, how they do Julie. They take a photo of his face. It's a really funny photo, and it's just, the more they show it, the more I kind of chuckle. He goes 3,000 years in the future, Julie's still alive. 8,000 years later, basically Julie's immortal. So then he says, so this time cube can go through, has dials for hours and days and months and years. I wonder if it has a dial for pages. And the time cube rips through these comic pages. We see one of Julie's helpful hints. I think this is like a total personal joke, where Julie was the kind of guy who's always giving advice to the youngsters. They're just dumb things like, always make a point to catch an early flight, so if your flight's canceled, you won't have to sleep over at the airport. So now he ends up on page 26. That's what he says, because Ambushbug knows he's in a comic, and he's in the era of the Legion of Superheroes. And this is guest drawn by Chris Sprouse, who was drawing the Legion at the time. Or at least the Legionnaires, whatever the comic was called then. And then Al Gordon calls up again with that same logo. And Al tells Cosmic Boy, I believe this is, that Yeah, he said that the creators are out getting drunk at a bar. Ambush Bug has been transformed into a blender. And then Julie Schwartz shows up. His name's Julie Ladd. Now we see the time cube crash landing. I just really like these 3 panels. Very interesting. And here's Julie again. So Ambush Bug, we see him checking out all these other times. Because this is the end of time, basically. He set the time cube for like 50 million years in the future. So here we see 3 million AD, 24,000 AD. And then in 1993, we see Ragman. And he has a thought balloon. He's just thinking of a Star of David. Very odd. 1946, we see Keith Giffen doing his Golden Age pastiche again. And now we see the guys in the bar chatting. And Keith Giffen has given Robert Loren Fleming shit. He's like, we artists don't need writers anyway. Don't need them. And of course, that's a perfect segue into our Image Comics parody, which had just come out. Probably while he was writing and drawing this. This is very recent satire. So here's Bug number 1. First issue, Get In on the Ground Floor. 7 covers, 14 trading cards, 22 holograms. He really does this Rob Liefeld thing really well. This is some good satiric art. Get out of my way. I have to appear on 7 different covers at the same time. Unfortunately, we just get 1 page of this. And the writing is just terrible. 7 covers later, the city broods like some kind of brooding city. And then Julie Schwartz shows up as some other kind of Liefeld character. And then look at this crazy anatomy going on here. And now we see Julie. He says, well, enough of that. He's basically telling us that artists and writers are like children. It's really editors who make comics. Now we see Ambush Bug is in this black void because he's in the realm of death. And he's lamenting the fact that he's not in the summer's crossover of that year, the Eclipso one, which I don't think anyone even remembers or cares about. But every single DC annual crossed over into it. But because this is a special, not an annual, he's not allowed in. So he's really bummed about this. And Death tries to help him out, but she's like, yeah, sorry. I got a job to do. I got work to do. I can't help you out. Now, for some reason, Ambush Bug goes to Robert Loren Fleming's house. Because I guess Robert Loren Fleming was coordinating that whole Eclipso crossover. It was his baby. So he's like, oh, I'll take a look at his notes. So he's got this vault. And he goes inside. And this is weird. There's a mounted head of Cheeks, the toy wonder. Ambush Bug doesn't even comment on it. Doesn't say, oh, my dead boy or anything. He just starts reading the notes. He comes across the great American novel that Robert Loren Fleming has been threatening everyone with. And we actually get 2 pages of it. Forever Ambush. It's pretty cheesy. And now we cut away to that bar. And apparently, it looks like Keith Giffen's got his hands on this manuscript. And he's just reciting it back to Robert Loren Fleming, laughing at him. Robert Loren Fleming's just going, shut up. Shut up, man. Cut it out. Now, we see Ambush Bug. He's trying to get one of those Eclipso gems. Because that's, I guess, Eclipso, if you get one of the gems in your forehead, anytime you feel anger, you'll be overcome with this evil Eclipso whatever, energy or force. So he wants to be part of this crossover so bad. He's like, I want one of those. He can't get one. They're too expensive. But then Johnny DC says, psst, over here. She's in an alley. And she says, I'll give you one for $5. So he puts it on his head. And then he realizes, oh man, I don't feel angry about anything. I got to make myself angry. So he becomes a taxi cab driver in New York City. This really sweet family from the Midwest shows up. And that doesn't work. He actually befriends them. And they have a great day. Then this little orphan comes up. This nun says, oh, will you give my little friend a lift? Then he gets a job at Camp Crystal Lake. I like this how he says, yeah, it's weird being in a slasher movie, setting. I do like the music, though. Cha-cha-cha. And then, all of a sudden, the pity party seal, which I didn't point out, that was on that romance cover, on page, 8. It shoves Ambush Bug out of the panel, and now we see another of Julie's helpful hints. Now we see Ambush Bug crying on a hilltop somewhere, and an eclipsoed head of Julie Schwartz rolls down this hill. Ambush Bug's furious. He's like, even his head gets to be an eclipso. And all of a sudden, this guy pops up. And he says, actually, you didn't summon me. The black diamond you have is just a cubic zirconium. It's not anything. But I'm Eclipso's third cousin, twice removed, Brownouto. So then it looks like maybe they're in the same bar. Oh, no, they're not. They're in some deli or something. And Brownouto introduces him to all of his siblings, who are kind of like minor demigods. One is called Talks with Mouthful, First to Arrive, Last to Leave, Bad Breatho, Uncle Incontinento. And then Brownouto says, Mr. Ambushbug, do you realize you're drooling? And then we cut away to the fanboy press again, once again giving us the plot. Plot development. Ambushbug's been committed to an asylum. We also have this Kyle Giffen and other preteen creators leave DC to form new company. If you remember, that's Keith Giffen's son who drew some pages in the previous Ambushbugs. And now we just cut away to this, another Sergeant Rock parody, the Screaming Socks of Easy. And the narrator here, I guess all the Easy Company's been killed. But we see Argyle. I guess he was one of the socks. He's a new recruit. And then after all the Easy Company have been shot down, he gets all their socks, basically, of the wounded soldiers to rise up. But they all get mad at Argyle, and they frag him. They kill him. But then they attack the Nazis. Once again, we get to see some fun Joe Kubert parody. Look at this panel right there. It's a little off, but it's definitely, you can tell he's trying to do Kubert. I don't know why everything's green. Oh, I guess at the time, Comics Buyer's Guide was printed all in green, because all of these things that are supposedly from the Comics Buyer's Guide are green. We have great moments in comic book history, and we just see a young Keith Giffen watching hours and hours of TV while his mother yells at him from the other room to do his homework. This page, I don't really even understand what it is. Interview with a Lunatic. And we see these little questions. And then it's just an excuse for Keith Giffen to show off his mimicry skills. And once again, Rob Liefeld. Really good Frank Miller there. We see Amber Butane once again. Very Kirby-esque. And then we see Picasso. And then we see this hot lady, Ambushbug. I gotta say, this whole issue is even more just schizophrenic than anything we've seen. It really does seem like Keith Giffen plotted this in a day. And it just rambles around, and it's just really scattershot. But there's still funny stuff in it, so that's all I care about. And even though the art isn't as interesting to me, I think, like, Giffen was kind of moving away from his Munoz phase, even though he definitely has a lot of it in him. But he's also incorporated other things where he's actually finally almost making his own style. A year from now, he'd do that Trencher comic, which there's a video up on this channel about, where he finally took all these disparate styles he's been ripping off for years and came up with something totally original. I mean, Trencher, the art in that's amazing. This is a far cry from that. But we also see, like, definitely you see hints of Munoz. Look at this weird shading here. But there's other things coming in. Maybe that's because of Al Gordon, too. So now we switch gears. We're in Arkham Asylum, where Ambush Bug has been committed. And it turns into a Silence of the Lambs parody. But it features Sugar from Sugar and Spike. She's being Jodie Foster. And she needs to interview Ambush Bug about how to capture Julie Schwartz. I do love this joke where the warden says, and above all, don't torment him for years and then accidentally leave your pen in his cell. He hates that. So it's a pretty good parody. So now we see Deerfield, Michigan, and Julie Schwartz is basically doing the Buffalo Bob thing. He's got someone in this pit, and he's saying, put white out all over your body or you'll get the hose. And we see it's this guy who probably was in, I'm not sure who this is, but, you know, obviously written out of DC continuity. Because basically what, Sugar told Ambush Bug is like, this guy is like defiling comics continuity. And that's why she's going to Ambush Bug, because he has many times gone against continuity and lived to tell the tale. So she needs his expertise. But Julie is basically getting rid of all the characters that just don't fit now. They're too silly. Captain Carrot. This soldier character, I don't know who it is. But I like how Ambush Bug says, Julie's killed Beetle Bailey and Roger Rabbit? He doesn't even know who they are. And I guess he wiped out Spike, her partner. Another one of Julie's helpful hints. Things are just getting weirder in this. Now we're in we're in Kabuki, Indiana, and we see the gorilla that was on all those DC covers in the 60s when the main way to sell comics was to put a gorilla on your cover. But he's kind of penniless now. And Julie Schwartz shows up. Looks like he's going to kill him. And Sugar runs in with her gun. Julie knocks out the lights. And then Al calls again. Now we have a little interlude of Here Comes Cheeks, that cute little cut-up called Cheeks. And just him mounted on a wall. Not that he would do anything differently if he wasn't. He's a doll. And now we see Julie with 2 holes in his head in a coffin. And he's basically ushering us out of the story. He says, oh, well, that wraps it up, folks. Hope you enjoyed this comic. And then the last panel here is we see an AA meeting. And my name is Keith, and this is my friend Bob. We've been sober for 9 panels. And now we just get some random pages. See, this is the main problem I had with this comic. It's too linear. Like, I love the other Ambush Bugs where, like, every 3rd page would be a fake ad for a weird, fake comic or a parody of something or a little, like, almost like article, like, hey, how to draw comics. And this one is pretty much just 9-panel grids through the whole thing. And it's just mostly a story. There are some interesting asides, but just so few compared to the other ones. So now it's almost like they put them all in the back. So once again, we see Kyle Giffen. And this is colored by Katrina Tollin, age 4. And I think neither of those is true. Advantageous. It's so weird how I like this art. It's so appealing to me. I don't know. I can't explain. It's just a very silly comic. Now we have a little ad making fun of Al Gordon again. How it's like a 1-900 number where women can talk to Al Gordon. He's like, yeah, he's really depressed. There's a fucking noose there. This is like pretty black humor about someone you know, you know? And then this is interesting. We get a Bill Wray guest story, Buggy and the Beast. And I'm pretty sure Bill Wray wrote and drew this. He definitely drew it. And we see Ambush Bug frolicking through this forest, trying to find a place to poop. And he finally sees this castle. And he goes inside. He's about to take a shit. And then the toilet comes to life in the plunger, just like in Beauty and the Beast, you know? And then we see the Beast, who I think that's supposed to be Julie Schwartz. And he says, you know, he's like, oh, is that her? And the toilet's like, yes, master, it's your princess. And he whispers to Ambush Bug, he says, just play along. He'll kill all of us. So they dress up Ambush Bug. Look at this. It's pretty crazy for a DC comic. And then they find the perfect, like, princess dress. The Beast is very enthralled. So Ambush Bug says, I got to get out of here. I know, I'll make him go kill something in my honor. So that's what Ambush Bug tells him. And before Ambush Bug can even move, he's zipped out and zipped back. It looks like he's killed Ren the Chihuahua from the Ren and Stimpy show, which is Bill Wray used to work on. He was one of the designers. So Ambush Bug says, okay, I'll make a tougher task. He says, go out and get me something really dangerous. And he brings him the head of Evander Holyfield. And then the Beast basically leans in for a kiss. And Ambush Bug's like, wait. And he turns back into Julie Schwartz. The spell is broken. You have freed me. And then once again, his head pops off. I don't even understand why. Now we have a Where's Irwin page, like Where's Waldo. This is, I should have looked this up, guys. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure this is another artist. But maybe it is Bill Wray, too. It's definitely not Keith Giffen. But it doesn't really look like Bill Wray. I'll look it up and put it in the comment section. Sorry about that. Or in the info section. But it's almost every DC character you could even think of is in here. And then we just have this. Wait, don't start without me. Flush. And then one of Julie's helpful hints. Never go anywhere without going first. So just total nonsense, this comic. It's, I gotta say, there's a lot of good jokes in it, though. But also, just no structure. It just is such a rambling comic. It just, I mean, Ambush Bug usually does that. But it almost does it in a more thoughtful way. That's probably not the right word. But, yeah, this one really just seems like they were like, okay, we got to make an Ambush Bug special. And Keith Giffen was just like, okay, give me a few days. Here we go. But it is enjoyable nonetheless. And it's fun. And I still like this art a lot. It's very interesting, his style. So there you go, guys. Hope you had a good time watching this video. And I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.